Howdy folks, remember this face, because that's what we're carving today. So this is the typical Santa that I carve using this stencil. So this, I call it the Jolly Santa. This is on a 2-inch block. Now, if you want to do a winking Santa, this is what they look like. So you can see this guy has a wink on one eye, and this guy also has a wink on one eye. And the eyes are a little different because I was experimenting with some stuff, but I think we're gonna, in this video at least, we're gonna use this eye combination with a wink as well. And we're going to use this exact same stencil that we use for the typical Santa. Hey guys, I'm super happy that you found this video, but sometimes the algorithm can't be trusted to let you know exactly when a new video or a new stencil comes out. We have an email list now. You'll get notifications of when we put up new stencils like this one. You want to know exactly when it is released, go ahead and hit that email list and put your email into it. Thanks, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. So to get started, we're just going to lay out the face. So in this case, I'm just going to lay out his right side, so my left. And I'm just going to take this stencil, has this lip, hold it up to the piece of wood over here, and this wood is basswood. This is 2 inches across, and then I took it to the bandsaw and I cut it at a diagonal so it's corner to corner. So this we refer to as a corner piece. Okay, so I take my stencil, hold it up right here, take a mechanical pencil, and I just trace out the face. I'm only going to trace out this half. Okay, great. So now, to lay out the other side, let's take a look at this guy. So you can see that we're going to raise the cheek and the nose and kind of have a little bit of a slant in the hat. So we may or may not do the slant in the hat. Let's see. What I like to do is I get my ruler and then just make a mark that's about 2.5 to 3 millimeters above where the original stencil was set. So right here, so 2.5 to 3 millimeters. So you can do a little bit more and make it more exaggerated. I find that this is a good proportion. Okay, so with that mark right there, I can now align my stencil to that new point. Now the only thing that I'm not really gonna trace out is the new top of the hat over here. So I'm gonna go back to the original setting. There you go. So that face is now offset. So you'd be like, hey, that looks kind of wonky. Yeah, it does look kind of wonky, but let me show you. So over here we connect the nose, and over here now we're gonna connect from there to there. And now that nose is slanted. And over here, don't really worry about this because when we start to take off this corner, this mismatch in the mustache is going to get taken away. But the more important thing is that the cheek is up, the nose is slanted, and the eyeball plane is kind of offset. So this might be a little bit too much. We might actually end up with an eyeball plane that's right down here, but that's okay. We can kind of finesse that when we get there. Okay, and you know what? Let's go ahead and do a slanty hat as well, just like that one. So we'll take it from here. You can always change it a little bit and go that way. So like that. Okay, and let's do a ball there as well. Okay. And of course the mustache, the beard. And a cool looking hat. Something like this, give it a little bit of shape. Okay, we'll get there when we get there. Not really that important. Okay, great. So let's get started cutting. Okay, so I have my carving glove and my other glove for extra grip. So the first thing that I do with these carvings is I go for the nose. So I go stay off just a little bit from the nose line and carve upward. So I'm going to make a stop cut and then relieve it. Okay, and you see that mustache is now completely gone right there, so we can remove this wood. So I'm using a flex cut roughing knife. It tends to work well for removing a lot of material. We may end up switching to a detail knife for some of the other finer work, but so far this knife works out. Okay, now let's get to the nose bridge. So right up here, pretty much go down to where those lines connect. And maybe a little bit more after that. Yeah. So I tend to do a little bit deeper than that. Okay, let's take off this section right up here. Don't worry about taking off too much wood. It's kind of impossible to. There just come a point where you just cannot remove that much wood with this knife. Okay, so a little bit deeper. And yeah, unfortunately, most of this stuff is just by feel. There's no exact measurement I can give you, but this is kind of what it's going to look like now. Okay, so there's your profile. Alright, so let's get to the nose. So those lines, we're just going to follow it up and we're going to stop right at that bridge right here. And just taking it down. Right there. And coming in sideways. Alright, do the other side of the bridge. And right here. Alright, so we're only going to have one eye, so let's work on the side with the eye. So right here, I'm just going to put my knife and I'm going to do a stop cut there, and I'm going to shape the eye plane on the top side over here. And then this side's going to have the under part of the eye, kind of the bag section. Okay, there you go, that's a nice big eye plane. Okay, and for this one, let's try to do it up here. If not, we can always move it a little bit. It's easier to move it down than it is to move it up. So let's start with the more conservative upper section. Okay. And unlike in the traditional faces, you don't want the eye planes to be exactly the same, right? You want this one to be offset, obviously, because it has a wink. So let's see. So it's going to be smaller because not only is this section right here higher than that one, but you're also going to have the eyebrow that's lower. So there we go. Okay. Let's see if that works out. If not, like I said, we can always move it a little bit. In fact, I might move it down just a hair. Okay, good. Alright, so you guys know me, I like to get the eyes out of the way because they are the hardest part, I think. So let's go ahead and do that. We're just cleaning this stuff up right here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you guys can see a little bit better. So obviously I'm only going to use the left eye, think that's a stencil for the left eye, so this is what that stencil should look like. The one that I'm using at least. Yep, okay. So you have the eye section and the eyelid. So put that guy right there. So I like to hold it right at the base. And this is what that eye should look like after you're done with it. So kind of take a moment to reflect on that. So there's the eye itself, there's eyelid, and if you see, the eye socket stands off from the nose just a little bit right there. So you can achieve that by doing two things. One, either offsetting the stencil to begin with, or coming back and moving the nose inward. Just kind of pick your poison and go with it. So there's one thing that I noticed already is that this this eye plane is a little bit too small, so I'm going to move it all the way as close to the nose as I can. So that's going to force me to come back and close and move the nose further away from the eye. So that's fine, I'm okay with that. So I just trace it. Okay, let's see if we have the right thing. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that's really all I need to draw an eye. So there's not many markings on there, but that's enough to kind of get me started. So can you guys see the drawing on there? Yep. Okay. There's the eye and eyelid. Cool. Now for this guy, it's essentially a squiggly line that we're going to do. So like this, there's the high point, there's the low point, and then once again over here. So low point, high point, low point. And you can exaggerate it a little bit more, but that's about it. And then you're going to cut a very thin slit in the middle right there. Okay, and then of course you're going to give it a bag. Maybe a little bit different than that, not quite that. But that's essentially what the winky eye is going to look like, the cuts that we're going to make on there. Okay, so let's do the regular eye to begin with, and what I like to do is I just score the exterior part, so the eye socket, if you will. So this is a very caricature style look. If you're looking for a more realistic looking eye, I don't have that for you. But this is how I do eyes, and they tend to look pretty good. So, at least I'm happy with them. Okay. And careful not to tear the grain here. A better option, I guess, would be to use a detail knife, but this knife works okay. Okay, and now I'm just going to do, so that was essentially a stop cut, and now I'm just going to do a relief cut. Essentially taking off the wood up to that line. And be conscious of grain direction, because you can easily tear this stuff out. Okay, and now I'm going to shape the socket by going down like this. The great thing about just doing one eye is that you don't have the other eye to worry about. You don't have to worry about them looking symmetric or, you know, even or anything like that. Just kind of do one eye, and however it turns out, which is kind of nice. There we go. So depth is your friend. Okay, so you see I have a very thin sliver of that original line there, and that's all I had left. And that's really all I need to kind of get me back on track. It's like your brain can fill in the gaps for you, so. You know, that's going to be the top of the eyelid, and well, we can shape the eyelid however we want. So right here I know that I want it like that, and like that. Okay, so now I'm going to come with my knife and score that. I'm not going to drag the knife, I'm just going to come in and essentially stab the wood. Okay, there we go. Let's clean that off a little bit. If you don't have one of these, it's very helpful. Okay, so that is essentially what the eye looks like. It might need a little bit more dressing up, but that's not bad. Okay, let's do the winky eye. So I like to use a very small V-tool. So this is a 45-degree micro V-tool from FlexCut. You know, it's super sharp. I actually sharpened it myself. But anyway, so to do this winky eye, we're gonna stay off the line. Okay, so you do need a sharp V-tool. If you have any tear out, let me show you. But you're not gonna have tear out if you go with the grain, right? But if you go across the grain, you should not have any tear out. And this one, hard to say because that grain is not super clean. Let's see. Okay, and oh, well, we have some tear out, so let's chance it. Okay, so right here I'm going to stay off the line because this V-tool has depth and that the cheek is going to catch on that line. So I'm going to stay off the line just a little bit. You know what? I do need to modify this guy. Okay, so to strop this V-tool, I just get this little piece of leather that I've cut into kind of this V almost. And like that. Right in the gullet. Alright, let's try this again. So, come over here, stay off that line. Okay, now come back with a knife and switch to a detail knife. Goodness, that's a lot of tear out. And I'm just going to score it essentially right where the trough of that, the valley of that V-tool was. And I'm going to finish off that surface with the knife. Okay. Okay, so there is my eyelid, right? So it's kind of has that cool looking shape. And now I'm going to do that slit right here. So I'm just going to take my knife, lightly give it a small slit right here, and then I'm going to change the angle very slightly. There we go. So, took a minute, sharpened this V-tool, and now it's fixed. So, come back in here, and 45 degrees should be a good general shape for that upper eyelid right there. Okay, good. Alright. So you can achieve that with a knife, or you can use a V-tool. So we're just getting rid of those pencil lines in there. Perfect. Okay, so now let's see what else we want to do on this character. So let's go ahead and do the, well, before we do the bags, we have to do the actual shape of the face. So, you know what, let's do something similar to that guy, where we have a little tuft of hair as well. So the slanted hat definitely adds to the winking expression. And we're going to do a tuft of hair like this. Alright, let's see, this guy right here. Something like that. Excellent. So now we can join this mustache, just like that. You see, now it's definitely slanted upward in that direction, and the eyes, I think, work out in that fashion. So you can always come back and fix the eyes a little bit more. I do believe that this is probably where you should spend the most amount of your time. Like that. Excellent. Okay, so the next tool we're going to use is a V tool. So this one is a 60 degree from File. It's a nice large sharp V tool. Okay, and I'm just going to start with this hat, like this. Okay, next I'm going to outline the face. So you can stay off the line just a little bit, give it a little bit wider face. Perfect, like that. And then make sure you do this line, which is the cheek to mustache. Do the mustache while we're here. Alright, and let's do this side now. Cool. That looks great. Okay, yeah. Let's put this guy away. Alright, so the next step is going to be scoring all that stuff. So come in with your knife. Just score it a little bit. Take some off that corner right there. Okay, now let's score the face as well. So this face, we got to separate it from the beard. So you can always come back and do it a little bit deeper. Okay, let's do the mustache to the cheek on this side. Okay, excellent. Now you might think that, hey, let's go ahead and go with the knife and start taking off all this stuff. And you could do that, but you're going to run into some issues. The best way to relieve this stuff is the same way that you do for relief carving, and that is with a gouge. Okay, so now is when we need to use our carving block. Okay, so now we have it all scored out. You could use, I use a number 7 gouge, so this is a number 7 10mm, and it's kind of a bent neck. It's just a fancy gouge. You could just as easily use a palm tool. This is number 7, I think 3/8 of an inch. This one works out fine. I have this new fancy one that's a little bit larger, so it lets me take off more material. So number 7, that's all you need. Don't go with like 1/8 of an inch. That's kind of worthless. Okay, so all we're doing is just separating this stuff. Doing nice big scallops. Okay, there we go. So now you gotta kind of play the game of how deep is it and how much do I actually need to take off. So we'll come back. And that's why it's kind of beneficial to stay off from the line when you originally do with the V-tool, because now you can come back and shave off any of those lines, any of those gouge marks onto the actual face. So there we go. This guy right here needs a little bit of help. Okay, so let's come back with the gouge once again and give us a little bit more depth. And the more separation you have, the more dramatic it's going to look, so just gotta keep that in mind. Alright, so enough of that. Now, let's go ahead and try to take off a few of these scallops. So you could also have done this with just your knife, but boy, let me tell you, that is difficult to do. Okay, so now we're going to start to thin these temples. So, come over here, like that. Okay, and that's where the hair is, so we'll come back to that in a second. Move you guys out just a little bit. Okay, so I'm just cleaning up those scallops and any kind of rough ends right there. So you can still see some gouge lines on the side of the face there, so I'm just coming in with my knife and cleaning it up a little bit. Hi there, kitty cat. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do that cheek to mustache interface. It's right here, right here. Now let's take the corners off of the nose right there. And the same thing over here. Same thing right here. Okay, that looks good right there. Continue to fix it up just a little bit. So you really want a really dramatic cheek to mustache junction right there. So the deeper you go, the more dramatic it's going to look, the better it's going to look. Because depending on the way that you paint or you finish it, whether you apply stain or you apply like a paint wash or something like that, it's really going to penetrate and stand out. So, and you also really want really round cheeks, and that's how you achieve them. So this plane of the cheeks and this plane of the mustache are on the same height, elevation, but this interface right here is going to make it look like the cheeks are really, really round. So the same thing over here. Go as deep as you feel comfortable going. Take off any of those stray fibers of wood in there. Alright, now let's do this right here. I'm going to separate the cheek from the nose a little bit more. Okay, is that? I need a little bit more attention. Maybe. There's a stray fiber in there. There we go. I think that may have been it. Let's come back over here, do that little tuft of hair. So like this, like that. Don't really want to get in the way of the eyebrows. So there we are. Let's use the newly sharpened V-tool. What a letdown. I claimed that it was super sharp and then it was as dull as can be. Jeez. Oh well. Goes to show, guys, that everybody on YouTube is just a self-taught, self-proclaimed expert. Myself included. Okay. There we go. So that works out. So whenever I do a knife cut like that with a stop cut, I always kind of come in with the V-tool first just to help guide the knife. Okay, there we go. Cool. Alright, let's shape these eyebrows. So just give me a nice plane to work with. And like we were saying, this one's going to be slightly lower, or at least we're going to try to make it slightly lower. And we did that by not extending that eye plane as high up as the other one. So right here, we're going to take off more material. So right there. Okay. Alright, so that's looking pretty good right there. Okay. Okay, and right in the center here, we're going to take our number 7 once again and separate the bridge right there. Okay. And you can always come back and do a little bit more. Alright, so we still got a little bit more work to do on this cheek right here. But first, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to give this eye a few more lines right here. There. And I want to get rid of all this fuzziness, which is just indicative of the original surface of the wood there. Right. Okay, let's see. Round this over just a little bit more. Okay. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's work on this plane right here. Make it a little bit rounder. Extend this line just slightly. So you really don't need much of a sliver right here to kind of give that sense that it's winking. But I am going to make this top of the eyelid a little bit more dramatic over here. Meaning I'm going to make it a little bit steeper. Okay. So it's not like you can just come in here with your V-tool just once. There's kind of there's more material taken off here and here than there is in the center. So kind of like almost like seeming like there's an eyeball inside. Okay, so now let's give our little guy. So this, you may notice that, hey, the surface is not fully round yet. Yeah, that's right. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give him a bag. So you can see in this guy, that bag goes pretty much from the end to the end on the inside of that sliver. And you can always extend the sliver a little bit afterward. So here we go. Not too far, not too close. There we go. It's pretty good. Now I can take off the material underneath. Okay, and I'm going to extend that sliver by just a hair again. Perfect, like that. Doesn't take much. And of course I'm going to go ahead and take it off by trying to round this over some more. There we go. Okay, now let's finish rounding over this cheek. So it's not so boxy. Cool. Okay. So now let's do the nostrils. Or not the nostrils, I guess the nasal labials. Sorry guys, I'm not up on my nose terminology. Okay, so this one is lower than this one, as you would expect. So let's go ahead and take our V-tool. You know what, let's take a larger V-tool. And make sure it doesn't slip. Okay, good. Now we can start to round over that nose. So I can give my nose a little bit more round shape and not so boxy now. Okay, move the material right here. Okay. Now on this one I'm gonna try something different. Because if you look on the mirror, when you wink, at least like a really expressive wink, you might notice some stuff, some wrinkles. And really it's kind of just knowing which wrinkles to put on there and which ones to ignore, right? Because there's a ton of wrinkles on the face, generally. But it's just being able to distinguish like which ones are the large ones, which ones are the small ones that you need to include, you know, stuff like that. Boy, that nose is really, really dramatic, isn't it? Okay, so we're just continuing to shape this nose, and we'll get to some of those wrinkles. Let's see. See in here. Okay, take that down. Okay, down a little bit more. Perfect. You want a nice clean eye right there. You don't want any stray fibers, so come in with the tip of your knife, clean all those up. Okay, so let's see if this is going to work or not. So I may need to clean this up just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to give him one, maybe two wrinkles right here on this side of the nose. If you look in the mirror, those wrinkles are there. So just with the knife, score it really quick, and then come in from the bottom, like that. Let's see if that did anything. Yep, that looks kind of cool. Two little wrinkles right there on the nose. And you can fix them up a little bit more, make them a little bit more extreme if you need to. That looks cool. Yep. There you go. Maybe you might even be able to take them all the way up to the front of the nose. Right, like that. Yeah. I think that looks great. Okay, and these guys, you can also take them down the front like this and separate. There you go. Now you have a nose with a whole lot of character. It took a little bit to get there, but there you go. Now that is a really exaggerated winking face. Okay, I think the only thing left would be to take this eyebrow down just a little bit. So like this, try to bring it closer to the eye. Okay, right there. So now that eyebrow, you can see it, it's lower than that one. Cool. Now let's go ahead and do our lines for the eyebrows. I just use a V tool. Actually, I end up using this one, the big one. And I just do lines that are not perfectly vertical, not perfectly horizontal, and kind of progressing with the face. Right. Not too many of them, 5 or so. If you do vertical eyebrows, it's just gonna look spooked. So. You can always take some away if you do too many, or if you make them too long, you can always come back over here on this side and take that out. That looks pretty good. Okay, so giving a lot of attention to that eye, let's go ahead and do some on this side. First, let's take off this pencil line that's right here. So very thin layer of wood right there, using just the tip of the knife. So this is a detail knife. Okay. Okay, that eye I think is as good as it's gonna get. Let's give ourselves a bag underneath the eye. So I take it pretty much from there to there. Come with my V tool. So this is a smaller micro 45-degree V tool, which they stay sharp for about, I don't know, 6 months I've had that guy, and then suddenly they will go dull. So now I'm going to take off that lower lip of there. I also want to take off that pencil line, so right here. Perfect. And you can always deepen it a little bit with your knife. Right. Okay, good. Now I'm going to do 2 lines. One like this, one like that. Okay, once again with the V tool, just come here and up. Come here and up. Now that is a super expressive face. That is kind of neat. Okay. I'm sure there's more you could do to this, right? In fact, right here, let's go ahead and give ourselves another line right here. I think that'll really seal the deal. So let's take it like this and make that line a little bit further past the eye. There we go. If you wanted to, you could also do one on the outside over here. That's kind of going from nowhere to nowhere. There you go. Nice. That looks neat. I like it. Excellent. Okay. Fix this mustache up a little bit. Like I said, the face is the one that deserves the most attention. Right, so that's why I always start with the eyes, and then go to the face, and then do the rest of it. Because the rest of it, well, the rest of it is really just a beard and a hat. Okay, cool. Alright, let's do the mustache so we can get that out of the way. Well, actually, you know what? We're not going to quite do the mustache because we still have the beard and such to go, and the mouth. So let's not do the mustache. Let's go ahead and do the hat. Okay, I'm going to switch over to another tool that I use for this part. I use a chisel. So I really need to get this hat. So all this material, I need to essentially take it down to about there. That's what, like a 1/4 of an inch, maybe? Yeah, I'd say 1/4 of an inch or so. Maybe a little bit less, not so much maybe. So what I do is I take a chisel, and on this carving block right here, just take my chisel, brace it against my shoulder, and then take out massive chunks. They don't need to be pretty. As opposed to going with your knife and taking all this stuff off, just go with your chisel. We're going to do the same thing for the beard. So there you go, you see? That's a good amount. Let's do this side a little bit more. And this is bevel up, so really helps out. So bevel up means that the chisel really wants to dig itself in like that. Bevel down gives you more control, but then the handle is higher, and so you have to stand up, put it against your shoulder, and it works just the same. So same thing for the beard. Yeah, you don't need a super thick beard. You could just take it down to that, essentially, which is kind of crazy, huh? And one thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to give it a lip right here. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to do some scoops. You could use a gouge to do this, but you can also just use the direction of the grain to help you out. So because we gave it that angle, now we're just going to do that scoop. Okay, excellent. Let's take off these corners. Now guys, this is about as safe as it gets with this knife. Like, I can't take this knife anymore past this. Like, I saw some post about somebody saying, hey, you should put your thumb underneath. No, you should just put your thumb right where it's gonna go, because your knife actually cannot physically go into your thumb. Like. Anyway. Well, there you go. Cool. Then, so now let's do a mouth. Just trying to clean up that mustache before I get to the mouth. Okay. Now for the mouth, kind of do a slanty mouth as well, like that. You know what? Let's kind of do a little bit different shape. Let's see if that works out. Okay. So take the V tool, give me the general shape first, and then come back with the knife. These carving blocks are great. You know, I made one just from some pretty simple Home Depot lumber. Really let you brace your work against it. Okay, that may or may not look good. Let's see. Now, that mouth, just going to score the inside and take a sliver out of the middle. keep on shaping that mouth a little bit. You know, it's the usual back and forth of carving. Let's see. And then let's round it out just a little bit. There we go. Now we can fix up the bottom of this mustache. That looks okay. You know, I'm not super enamored with it. Anyway, yeah. So let's go ahead and do the hat and obviously the beard. So the beard, I like to do these long strands. So I like to go like this and kind of this one's just going to have kind of a general unkempt shape. Right here we're going to do one that kind of comes from that. Okay, so what I do, take my knife and just score all those lines. Be very careful, please, because this knife tends to slip, especially towards this outer section right here. Okay, so yeah, so just score all those lines, pretty much as deep as you can go. Okay, got 2 more to go. Okay, now we're just going to relieve all those. So, come over here. Essentially, you're going to use your knife as a V-tool. Oh, hello again, cat. Okay, and really give it some depth. But make sure it's kind of clean looking, right? Not very choppy or anything like that. Okay, and try to follow the grain. So right here, use the grain to your advantage. Okay, so this right here, look at that, perfect. So in this direction, go like this. You always gotta refer back to the donut. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up carving a donut. That is essentially the first exercise you should do as a carver. I'll teach you everything you need to know about grain direction. Okay, so this way. sometimes it's more difficult to hold on to it in one direction than the other. And you might be tempted to hold it in a way that compromises your hand, so just be cautious of that, right? And nothing says you can't go against the grain, right? Like plenty of knives that are super sharp work perfectly fine against the grain. But if you're kind of getting to this point and you have some tear out, then either go sharpen your knife or work with the grain. It's gonna be a tough one. So I went too deep with that side and didn't meet up in the middle. Let's see if that works. This is a section that always gives me trouble, this part right down here, because the grain is straight and I'm trying to do all these curves, and so the grain direction is kind of changing with each strand here. Okay, so get that out. And really just play with it, right? See how you want the pieces to flow. Okay, so you see? Now I can't do my usual thing. So there I'm going against the grain, but it worked out. Excellent. Guys, sorry for the really long video. This is just, it's just the way this guy works. This is how long it takes me. Sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less, Okay, so let's see there. So if you have any of these double lines that I have going on over here, it just means that either you have to go deeper or, well, it means that the knife marks didn't match up. So to fix that, you have to go deeper. There we go. sometimes, you know, it's not perfect. That's okay. Alright, and yeah, this is the last lock. That's fantastic. Looks like a lion's mane almost, you know? It's kind of neat. Okay, very, very neat. Cool. So my wife claims that this is too plain, so we're going to fix this up a little bit by giving it some V-tool lines. And she would know, she paints them. So if she says it doesn't have enough character, then, well, you know, who am I to say otherwise? So here we are. I'm just taking off all the original fuzzies from the original block of wood, because I don't really like any of those on there. And I'm going to take off these things a little bit so it looks more lion's mane-ish. And this guy right here. Excellent. So now we just take our V-tool and give ourselves some texture. Hopefully your knife lines are deep enough that when you do this with the V-tool, it doesn't compromise those original lines. Otherwise, I suggest that you come back with the knife and make them deeper. There we go, like that. And they don't have to be long and continuous. You can make them short, however you want. And vary the depths. Switch to the micro. Okay, and this tuft of hair over here, I'm gonna go ahead and give him a little bit of texture as well with the V-tool. Just some light lines on there. Okay, that looks good. That looks pretty good. Nice. Okay. The hat. Let's go ahead and get through that guy. Okay, so right here, I want to do pom-pom right there. I'd like to do these scalloped hats. I don't know, they kind of look a little bit interesting. Look at that. Cool. So just go ahead and take your V-tool and trace all that stuff out. And then if you stick around, I'll show you a trick to making that hat look really, really amazing. It involves a gouge. Okay, so let's go ahead and use our knife. Go back to that method where we score it, and then we're just going to remove all that material from there. I did not do this pom-pom. That's a silly choice. Cool. That works. Okay. Make sure that hat has a nice deep score line. Cool. Alright, let's do the other lines as well. And same up here. Okay, excellent. So let's start with this guy right here. So I like to tuck this part underneath that scallop. You know what, I'm going to use a tool that's a little bit safer for this. So I'm going to use my number 3 gouge. So this is number 3, about 3/8 of an inch. This is not a number 3. Just kidding. This is a number 3. So number 3 is about almost like a number 1. It's almost like a chisel. It's almost perfectly flat. But it has a little bit of a contour to it, which really allows you to kind of get in there. So this is much safer for me, I think, because I don't have this giant knife that's waving around, and I can have better control of it. You know, I can also use it like this. Yep. See, I can remove material in a much more controlled fashion. Okay. So right here. Okay, and let's remove this piece, this stuff right here in the middle. And you can also score with it. Cool. Alright, let's go back to the knife for a little bit. So obviously it didn't do everything it needed to down here, but I think over here I can hold the knife with a little bit more confidence. Okay. So let's shape this pom-pom some. Okay. So, we have kind of the general shape. Keep on taking this down just a little bit like that. And really get the depth where you want it to be, right? Okay, let's shape this guy right here. Good. And this right here. I want this to be a little bit deeper. Cool. This is the downside to wearing gloves, is that your carving gets all dirty. But that's okay. Just a little bit of sandpaper takes all that stuff off. Alright, come on. Okay, round over this ball just a little bit more. Okay, and I'm going to shape this guy. Now one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this angle back here and I'm going to angle it backwards. Gives it more of a three-dimensional feel. So all these scallops back here, give it that backwards looking angle. Okay, let's clean that up. Take off all those corners because, well, that might have been too much. Okay, oh, it's good. Okay, so now one more final one more touch on there. So I'm going to take the number 7 gouge, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of texture. Now let's do these guys. And really, this kind of has a dual purpose. One, it looks really cool to have that texture on there, but then when you come in and you paint it, and you come back and dry brush it, it acts as the high points, and so the white paint really catches on. So what I mean by that is, look at this hat. You can see I did the same gouging technique, and that's what that ends up looking like. Okay, so now with the same, yeah, let's go ahead and go with the same one. We're just going to gouge this brim of the hat. And give it that texture. You really don't need that many tools to do this. I think more so you just need the patience. This is obviously not a 10-minute project. I'm kind of curious what you guys would price something like this, though. Obviously there's a very big price range. I've seen these go for upwards of $100, sometimes as little as $20, which I think is just an absolutely preposterous. Like, truth be told, guys, not very many people in the world can carve this, you know, at least not from day one. So it is kind of a old world skill that's kind of going by the wayside. Anyway, there you have it. Let's clean it up a little bit. Yeah, definitely got to come back with some sandpaper and clean up that nose. It got super gunky. But there it is. That is... Oh, just kidding. You know, we skipped the mustache and never came back to it. So with a V-tool, just come in here, do a couple gouge lines. There you go. That's a pretty cool mustache. Yeah, like I said, a little bit of sandpaper, hit up that nose, and it'll be good to go. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys carved this guy using this little stencil. It's what makes all this possible. Happy carving!